Brew ratios. What are they? Just a bunch of numbers, really. Well, what do they mean, you ask? Well, they're just a simple representation of the amount of coffee and the amount of water used to make your espresso by weight. Oh, what do they really mean? Well, what is love? Or what's the sky to a bird, or the sea to a sailor? In short, it just depends on what kind of espresso you want, what kind of coffee you've got, and what you want to do with it. So let's go through some of the most common brew ratios for espresso and consider their pros, cons, and associated emotions. We'll start off with the most concentrated. A 1-to-1 ratio is realistically as concentrated as you can get without creating a disaster. Classically, this might be called a ristretto, meaning restricted in Italian. Pretty straightforward etymology there. Frankly, when I think of a 1-to-1 ratio, I mostly think pain in the ass. But that's not entirely fair, and that gets us right into some of the key considerations that come into play when you're choosing your brew ratio. A 1-to-1 ratio is entirely prioritizing potency. It makes much more sense for traditional darker roasts. It's meant to produce a shot that you can slam down in a few seconds at a counter so you can get back to the factory and put together a few more fiats. That concentration can also make 1-to-1 shots great for milk drinks. After all, less water means more milk, which means a creamier final beverage. This is particularly valuable for small milk drinks like a 3-ounce macchiato or a 4-ounce cortado, where every drop counts. Luckily, darker roasted beans are very permeable compared to lighter ones. This means that when they're ground super fine for a super concentrated ratio, they're much more likely to allow for even flow through the entire puck. Since I almost never drink darker roasted coffees, my experience with 1-to-1 shots is mostly that of trying to pull them with a much lighter, much denser roast. If you want to see some channeling, just try that. Darker roasts also generally benefit from shorter extraction times, which makes this ratio a little easier to achieve in practice. So if you're a traditional espresso drinker or a macchiato fan, the 1-to-1 ratio could be for you. Our second ratio is a lovely midpoint, a balance of concentration and flow rate that can get good results with almost any coffee. There's a reason it's the ratio we recommend in our guidance to new home baristas when they get their first espresso setup with us. A 1-to-1.5 ratio is concentrated enough to allow for a delightful cortado or latte, and to provide you with that classic espresso smack in the face when sipped straight, if that's what you're into. Allowing for just a little more water also means that it becomes considerably easier to pull a consistent 1-to-1.5 shot with medium and light roast coffees. I often think of 1-to-1.5 as the jack of all trades ratio. Master of none is often better than master of one, so if you want to stick with one ratio for simplicity's sake, 1-to-1.5 is a pretty good bet. You're not getting the extreme concentration or clarity you get at the ends of the spectrum, but honestly, you can go pretty far without missing them. Let's get a little more diluted, drop the chains of the past, and talk about the 1-to-2 ratio. People are currently jokingly, or at least half-jokingly, referring to these as a boomer shot now, which is hilarious because boomers were not pulling shots like this. Realistically, this is a millennial shot, and I'm not just saying that because I feel personally attacked. Anyway, I think the name has more to do with the fact that since the beginning of the so-called third wave, the 1-to-2 shot has become so common as to become passé among the ever-evolving espresso avant-garde, or maybe just Reddit. There is a lot to love about a 1-to-2 ratio shot. I don't want to out myself as a wuss, but when it comes to straight espresso, this is the first ratio that I can truly sip and enjoy. A little more dilution allows room for the flavors to breathe and evolve over the course of a sip and over the course of a cup. Just enough to downgrade that smack in the face to something like a playful slap. While these are more diluted, some will argue that that actually makes for a better milk drink. Before you call me crazy, James Hoffman said so. You gonna call James Hoffman crazy? I wouldn't. It's all a matter of taste, but I find that a 1-to-2 or even a little higher ratio shot allows for the flavors of the espresso to cut through the milk. Where a bright coffee might become muddled by milk at a 1-to-1 and a cappuccino, it can really shine at 1-to-2 and become a whole new tasty animal. Whether you want a creamy coffee or a new tasty animal, what am I saying? Is entirely up to you. Once we get to a 1-to-3 ratio and everything beyond, the percentage of people that are willing to call this coffee espresso starts to drop off dramatically. This is the land of true lungos, turbo shots, and even soup. Almost no one would suggest making a milk drink with a 1-to-3 shot, and very few will bother going this far with darker roasts. Shots are pulled at a 1:3 or greater ratio to ensure even flow, maximize clarity, and produce a shot that is eminently drinkable. Do you want to drink your whack champagne yeast fermented coffee straight, where you're going to throw a couple ounces of hot water at it anyway? Then a 1:3 or 1:4 ratio shot might be for you. They're also great for experimenting with lower pressure and higher flow rates and leaning into the natural effects of a coarser grind. I've just recently become a soup shot convert, and I found it delightful for getting clear, crisp flavors with the most finicky of coffees. I'm happy to leave the question of whether or not this 1:4 soup shot is espresso to the experts. All I know is it's great coffee, and it tastes even better while I watch you argue. If you're new to espresso, I hope this brought just a little more clarity to the jumble of numbers that is brew ratios. Are you out there brewing with something crazy like a sub 1:1 ratio or a 1:8 ratio? Let me know in the comments. I want to pick your brain. For more espresso experiments, tap subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching. New tasty, what am I saying?